So you are president of the United States,
Mm.
President Gray. It is January 20th, your inauguration day. What are the first three actions you're taking as president within your first 100 days?
Well, you know I'm gonna cancel student debt.
I know you're going to do that.
A girl's gonna cancel student debt.
Look, you're going to do student debt like they did Men on Film. Hated it.
um, yeah, I mean, we have to have free public colleges and universities immediately.
Yeah.
But let's call that just one big thing.
Yeah.
So this is a question that also, I presume that we're talking executive order land.
Yeah.
Because, who knows what my Congress is like and if I can get those Nimrods to fall in line. So I start by antagonizing my base by calling all of my Congress members Nimrods. And then I probably do the using my executive authority to expand Medicare for all, my emergency powers to expand Medicare to all for pandemic relief. And hope that that helps familiarize people enough with the process that it advances the goal of ultimately having real Medicare for all down the line.
Yeah.
And thirdly, executive power-wise, I have to consult with some people whether we can nationalize the energy sector. But I'm pretty sure you can, because remember when Obama did it during the recession for the auto industry, and then very quietly just privatized it again. That wasn't necessary, right? He didn't have to do that. And so I do think that something big and climate related that really probably upset a lot of people, but would speak to the gravity of what we need to do with respect to climate change. I mean, watching the way that the Ukraine situation is being used as an excuse to undermine any lip service or any policy nod that was given toward climate action is devastating. I'm not going to say one of the more devastating aspects, given, obviously the loss of human life, but in terms of the long reach of what the consequences of this are going to be, I think that's going to be the real untold story. How another oil war is being used as a pretext to fully unwind any progress on climate change in a way that is going to be so cataclysmic. And even if they, assassinate me the day after because I've done all these things, having had that pulpit and behaving in a way that really makes it difficult for the next person in my seat to deny that this is actually what can be done if someone had the political will to do it, I think it would be really important to demonstrate that.
Yeah. And someone seeing that someone at that high of an office having the political will to do it changes the mentality of the nation, because now they can see, oh, they can do all this stuff.
They're choosing not to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things. Again, I have to go over David Dayen's list of what I can do by executive authority. But how amazing and there are all of these things that, we're immediately starting construction, a jobs program to build enough houses to completely eliminate homelessness. Not that it's a housing stock issue, but we do have a housing stock issue in addition to the 500,000 homeless people. And to say, okay, a year from now, there's just not going to be that. We're not doing homelessness anymore.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that anymore. There are all of these things that are ultimately fairly small in scale that don't actually require huge systemic changes that people still don't do when they could call them obvious wins.
Yeah.
And, they have the power to do the Star Trek thing and expand people's belief in government and their imagination as to what could actually be done,
Yes. Thank you. Dear God, Briahna, thank you.
Also, maybe some investments in kind of independent media infrastructure. And I've always thought that progressives don't brag enough about their wins. We need to have more a national day of, public works and celebration, more plaques and signs that indicate that this pool that you're enjoying, this subway, this is a public works project. We built this as a community. We can do more of these kind of things. We could be spending tax dollars on building these libraries and these roads and this infrastructure, changing out the pipes in Flint and 1,000 other cities across the country that are similarly being poisoned. Those kinds of things, those kinds of commitments could really restore people's faith in government and do more to get people to register to vote and like turn out the vote than a million, P. Diddy style t-shirts or whatever. Sorry.
Vote or die. Right.
No shade to Sean.
Well, a little bit of shade to Sean. A little bit. No, I'm just kidding. But, one of the things that I honestly think about is what you said about like nationalizing the energy grid. It's like, do you know how much of a boom to the economy that would be if we didn't have for-profit energy sector where your electric bill only paid for maintenance and operation costs and that was it? And if that being said, then that like a Republican can't say, well, that's going to spend us too much taxpayer money. It's like, no. It's going to save us money. It's going to save you money.
It makes money. The Tennessee Valley Authority, those public works projects, they made money for the government. At the same time, they delivered energy at lower cost to the people of those regions. And the reason, the private industry didn't want to serve those communities because they felt like it wasn't going to be profitable to them because they were factoring in a certain profit margin for themselves that would make it worthwhile. And that's the whole point of not wanting to have private actors involved in providing these kinds of basic services. And surprise to everybody involved, the TVA was a profit driver for the government. It benefited the community and it was a profit driver for the government. So yeah, there's just no excuse. We don't hear those stories told. No, nobody wants to talk about it. And having someone with such a big platform talking about it, I think would be a real boon. 10 out of 10 though, you're going to get got. I hope you all enjoy my inaugural address because that's the last time they're going to let me talk in public. Just build a nice statue for me. That's all I ask.
Yo, real talk. On RBN tonight, actually, we're going to be reacting to the State of the Union tonight. Yeah. We're going to be doing it in real time. So we're going to be clowning on Joe Biden because warmongers deserve to be clowned on. Let's just be real.
Indeed. I think I told Katie that I would do it over with her, I think on Call-In.
Okay.
So we'll all be reacting.
It's going to be an interesting evening, to say the least. So my next question is, Bree, what is something you're going to double down on in 2022?
I don't know, man. I gotta say,
she's like, I'm tired.
I know I don't want to be like that. Oh, I'm so tired. Like, because the world's smallest violin for me, but I am feeling a little like the conversations have gotten a bit circular. I have people on the show, for a year and a half going on, and I ask them questions about what needs to be done, and we analyze the problem, and everyone's on the same page. And at a certain point, it's like, okay, but when are we going to start doing it? And I was thinking, I was talking to a friend recently, and I was like, oh gosh, I wish I could maintain all of these patrons, but instead of putting out podcasts, those patron bucks went to just paying my salary to start trying to do some of the organizing work that we talk about on the show all the time. So, I can just shift to, instead of like spending all these time like booking guests and reading their books and talking to them about things, we just start implementing some plans. And I'm like, okay, this week, next few weeks, I'm going to spend helping the Debt Collective put together a media plan for how they can make this debt strike event in advance of the student loan moratorium ending on May 1st, the biggest and best revolutionary action it can be. We're going to do, whether it's a mutual aid project, whether it is sometimes an electoral project, whether it is a protest project where we're like tired of being jealous of Canadian truckers and we do our own civil disobedience that gets national attention. Like I sometimes just I want to stop talking about it and start doing it. And I don't know how possible that is, but that's kind of where my mind's at these days. And additionally, I I would like to double down on actually doing some writing this year because there is something that feels very ephemeral sometimes about the conversations. And sometimes I think there's some cohort of the public that would
Mhm.
take some of this more seriously if it existed in book form rather than YouTube video form.
Mhm.
So that's the mind space I'm in for
Mhm.
2022. I don't know. What are you doubling down on in 2022?
First of all, we're gonna go back to that amazing idea that you just posted in the first part that you moved on very quickly from. That was a great idea. I'm just like, wait, what? Bree, that was a good idea, by the
Wait,
way.
what part?
The part of, oh gosh, you said
Using
it
the
so much
pay like
eloquently than I could.
stopping the
Oh,
podcast and just doing the things.
well, I mean, why not both? Kind of like that little girl said.
Well, because
I mean,
it's
for
time
some of us,
consuming.
it's more time consuming, and so we don't have the time to do it. But I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do on RBN a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and so it feels like um you want to push that revolutionary spirit as well, which uh look, you came up with ideas way better than I could, you know. So I mean, hopefully somebody, within our space sees this, because for me it's more of an energy cost and a time and energy cost for me because of being on dialysis and disabled. And for you, there's some different types of costs as well. But other people who are in the space can also do other things as well. And like Rome always says, you need different types of people for the revolution.
Yeah.
That being said, you could be the idea person and someone else can be the execution person.
Well, but this is the thing, and this came up when Afeni was on my call-in show last week
Hmm.
after we did the Marianne event, and we were having this conversation with the value of electoralism and stuff, and people were asking her as someone who's you know very sympathetic to the frustrations with electoralism, but also
Hmm.
still working for a candidate, how she
Hmm.
manages that. And part of what came out of that conversation was, being an organizer does not put food on the table. Like it's not a lot of times I think people go into these electoral spaces in part because it's the only way you can kind of get paid for doing sort of the work you want to do. And
Hmm.
that's not like a bad thing. I mean, people have needs, you know, and I wish sometimes I think sometimes the left is like, oh well just if you care, do it in your spare time. And because people do care, they do it in their spare time. But what I would like to see is more paid jobs where people are being paid to do the work that's so valuable, and not feeling like they have to join a campaign to get a salary to do the work that's meaningful to them. There's
Oh
a
yeah.
world where instead of paying a producer to edit videos, I'm paying someone what is a good salary to
Hmm.
put their mind on planning revolutionary events.
Hmm.
You know, actually having a website and an organizational structure and lawyers who can make sure donations are going to the right place so you don't end up in this BLM national org situation that they're in where there's
That's
no accountability and no one knows where $60 million is gone, as we talked about in a recent episode.
true.
And that there are people who have skills that do come from a certain kind of experience and training, oftentimes in sectors that don't do good work. I say
Hmm.
this as someone who was a corporate lawyer. I have friends that went to business school and left their consulting firms because they hated it and it was evil and they read Anand's book and they agree and they do have a skill set that is like actually valuable. Sometimes I would look around the campaign being like, God, this could really use someone with some management experience up in here. you
Yeah.
know, and I think that sometimes the left is a little naive about some structural issues that could really help us win and anticipate what's thrown at us.
Mm.
And people like that would come and work in the sector, but there has to be some kind of job. There has to be,
That's
they got them business school loans. There has to
Yeah.
be some kind of job if they're gonna come. There's not like there's an expectation that you're gonna get paid a base salary, but I don't like that we are expecting everyone in our family to do work for free. That seems messed up to me. And so if
Yeah.
people are willing to pay $5 for a podcast, I would love it if they would pay $5 for a revolutionary structure that they could depend on. The same way that people pay $5 a month for Matt Bruning to do the amazing work that he does at the People's Policy Project, because he's seen that there is not a left policy network the same way there is a neoliberal policy network. And we are always going to have to self-fund, because the billionaires aren't going to fund projects about how to nationalize the energy sector
Yeah.
and how to nationalize healthcare. That's not their bag. So we're going to have to do it. It's not going to come from on high. It's not going to be Koch brother funded.